How's it, guys? My name is Mark Heystek, and I'm the host of the Birding Life Youth Podcast. But today, I'm hosting the Birding Life main podcast. Although I'm not alone, I've got the rest of the Birding Life's ambassadors here. So I'd like to introduce them all. And so let's introduce you guys quickly. Let's start with Yandre. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay, so I'm 17 years old. I live in Pretoria. And one of the main reasons why I started birding was because of my aunt. She's also a birder. So she inspired me, and I was fascinated in birds for my whole life. So yeah, it just began there, and then it started building up. And yeah.
Okay, Zach, how about you?
Okay, how's it, guys? My name is Zach. I'm 17. I live in Westville in KZN. I love chasing KZN rarities. So I'm KZN Lister. I really enjoy pelagic birding. And yeah, looking forward to the future and many more rarities in the season to come.
Cool, man. Justin.
How's everyone? I'm Justin. I've been birding for the last 4 or 5 years of my life, and ever since I started, I've just realized that there's so much more to birding than you realize. So I don't know if I'll ever be able to go back to the life that I used to live. Yeah. Because birding is just it's just something that's incredible.
Yeah. Tristan, how about you?
Yeah, how's it, everyone? I've been birding for quite a while now. I also chase a lot of rarities. I don't know. Yeah, I've been listing KZN birds now. Recently started. Many other hobbies. I love looking for reptiles while out in the field and learning from other people.
Did I just hear a hardy-dar in the background of someone's audio?
I think it was a baby or something.
No.
Oh, goodness. Okay, nice.
Maybe
got a bit of atmosphere there.
Or a cat.
Connor, how about you? How did you start birding?
Well, I started birding because I'm taking advantage of always being out in the bush, the game reserves, that sort of stuff. So yeah, I started to take advantage of that.
Okay, cool. And where are you based?
I'm in Joburg.
All right, lekker. So we're all South Africans, and we're all under 19, I believe. Is that right? Anyone 19 yet? No. Okay, cool. So
Yeah.
we're all youth. But yeah, my name is Mark Heystek. I'm 17, and I live in the Garden Route, very close to Justin. And I actually started birding with Justin. We started just birding together in our neighborhood, got to know our surroundings. Then we joined our local bird club, which tremendously boosted our passion and our interest, also our knowledge in birding in nature. And from there, about 4 or 5 years ago, it's just exploded from there, really. And birding is more than just a hobby, which we're going to talk about now. For many of us, it's a lifestyle. And I think that is a very good reason, or it correlates, I could say, with the birding life team, because the birding life is about, how birders get out there, what they do, the community, and that for some of us, it's not just a hobby, it's actually a lifestyle. Okay, guys, so I'm actually so glad we're together finally, because for the last, I think, 10 hours, we've been trying to get onto this podcast together, but we've been stopped by load shedding. And if you don't know what load shedding is, because you don't live in South Africa, I suggest you Google it. It prevents us from using electricity. So at different parts of South Africa, we had electricity problems, and now we're finally together. So I'm glad, Yandre's laughing there. I'm glad that we're finally actually talking, and that the Birding Life Youth Ambassadors can finally have a talk. So speaking of load shedding, I think, load shedding causes a lot of animal life and bird life to actually behave in a different way because of the light pollution and the noise pollution that electricity can generate, in urban areas. But I kind of want to just start off. I had a very interesting sighting during lockdown last year, where during load shedding, I went on the roof and I was listening out for the spotted eagle owl that I heard in my neighborhood. So I just told my parents, listen, good night, I'm going on the roof quickly. So I grabbed my bins, I grabbed my camera, and I was looking out for this owl, and then it pitched up right on the tree next to my house, and then it flew closer to the closer tree, and then I gave it a call. I think it was a male, and I gave it a female call with the 3 notes, and then it ended up flying right up to me onto the roof and sat right next to you. So I was lying on my roof with my camera over here, but I couldn't turn it towards the owl. Otherwise it would have flown away. It was less than a meter away from me. And although it's a common bird, it was very cool to get that experience, So that was a cool sighting during lockdown. But I want to see, I want to ask you guys, a couple of you had some interesting sightings during lockdown, and specifically Yandre, you said you had an interesting sighting just during an average day at your house.
Yes. So the one day a Western Osprey flew over my house, which was also a new bird for the pentad. And it's actually a rare bird for wider Gauteng, so it's worth reporting. But I didn't know it at that time. But yeah, also had great sightings of greater honey guides, little sparrowhawk, black sparrowhawk, peregrine falcons, and willow warblers.
That's quite nice.
Quite nice.
Yeah, that's a nice list of interesting birds. And Tristan, I believe you also had some interesting sightings. Tell us a bit about those.
Yes, I luckily live just down the road or a few k's away from a nesting pair of crowned eagles. Most evenings or early mornings, I'll see the pair displaying above the house. So I have a joy of seeing them just about every day.
Wow, that's nice. Anyone else had some interesting sightings during lockdown?
Not quite a sighting, but during lockdown, I found that it basically boosted the passion, because even though we couldn't get out to go birding, we'd be waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning to get out into the roof to listen and look out for birds. Yeah. Even though we were restricted to our houses. So this just shows that not even a fence and not even a lockdown can prevent us birders from doing what we love.
That's true. Yeah, I had a similar situation. It became a routine very much in lockdown to actually get onto the roof at sunrise with a cup of coffee in my camping chair and just list all the birds I see on Bird Lasser on my phone. We don't use eBird that much on this side of the world. But yeah, atlasing to submit data to Citizen Science for South African Bird Atlasing Project 2, and join the Bird Lasser challenge for lockdown, trying to see as many species as I can at my house. And I managed to get 90 species, which I was quite content with considering the area I'm in. But I think you guys, there's quite a difference in the numbers we got because of the different areas we stay in the country. So yeah, then every morning and every evening I'd go into the roof for sunset and sunrise and record the birds I see. And then in the middle of those two, I'd do my schoolwork that I get sent, which it was a hard time, but yeah, birding definitely saved me there. So I think that I don't know how many youth in the world would have been doing that kind of thing during lockdown. I think they would have thought we're kind of crazy. Were there any similar instances that you guys had?
I had a really good time. I'm really privileged that I live on a farm. So as soon as we heard that lockdown was happening, we all headed back to the farm. And so I spent time, and I had a much larger area than everyone else. So I got sort of 130 species, or almost 150 actually. And yeah, I really got some cool things. And I realized that you don't always have to travel to see really good birds. I managed to find 5 African grass owls in a nearby reed bed. I found Rufous-breasted sparrowhawk. Later on in lockdown, when the migrants got back, I found pictorial sandpiper, Turkish sandpiper. I had a day where I had 10 individual blue swallows, which is a critically endangered species, found on the misfelt grasslands. And so it really was a good time for me. And I was really privileged that I had all that space to explore. And if there's one thing you can take away from that, is that you don't always have to travel and chase things. You can find things on your doorstep right near home.
That's quite true. I think lockdown opened our eyes quite a lot. And we're going sort of the topic here of youth birding, but just the stuff we saw was very interesting because sticking to your home area, you kind of want to look more desperately for birds that you could see, because now you don't have that privilege to travel to nature reserves or to these special spots that you usually go birding. You have to look at your home pentad, as we would say. And yeah, I mean, even the South African Rare Bird News was getting some interesting stuff during these times, even though people weren't going out. And you wouldn't actually expect that as many rare birds would be found, because there weren't that many birders going out that much, except that we just all had an eye on the sky and we're checking out our local areas, and that way rare birds were still being found. So it was a very interesting time. But I kind of want to get onto the topic now about the stereotype of birding. It's seen as very much of a hobby for old people and old people only. Now, why do you guys think it is seen as this kind of thing? What are your thoughts?
So I think the reason why they see it as a all people hobby is because older people have more, maybe have more free time to go out and bird. They also have vehicles which can get them to nice places. And we sometimes struggle with lifts and getting to nice areas and having time for birding while we are still in school. But, we do make time to go out and bird and, just see what we can get.
Yeah, that's quite true. I can relate to that quite a lot. I saw this funny meme photo of, it showed a penguin sitting on the beach and two ostriches like dashing off in the distance. And the caption was like, me sitting in school while the big shots go twitch a rarity or something like that. And I just felt so relatable to that image, like I'm just a penguin here who has tiny legs and I can't go anywhere. Whereas these big shots, or the older people or the people with cars, they have the ability to go twitch, or the people who are retired who have the luxury. It's really cool. They can go on twitches and stuff, and that's great for them, but it does make us jealous. So I think, being a young birder, there are these difficulties, which we'll discuss a bit later. But I had this interesting. Is anything else that you guys want to say?
Birding has seen as quite an old person sport or hobby, because it doesn't require as much active. You don't have to be as active to do it. Also, it seems from the outside. But as us birders would understand, it does require a lot of fitness. Some of us would have fallen into anthills while looking for reptiles or birds. And some of us would have hiked 18, 20 kilometers just in search of one single bird. Some of us would have also gone wading in waist deep water just to find the one bird that we need for our list. So I think a lot of people think that it's a old people sport because you don't have to be active, but we would know that you need a certain level of fitness to participate in this hobby.
Yeah.
And with us younger birders doing it, we can see a lot more and get to a lot more places because of our fitness, our being young.
Mm. Yeah, that's very true. I mean, you will be surprised sometimes by the older folk who are actually fit enough to climb a mountain and go look at a Cape Rock jumper or something. But yeah, I think that, I had that experience with you, Justin, when we climbed up the Otanuka Mountain and we found the Cape Rock jumper there. It was like an 18-kilometer walk just to see a bird, and that's an example of something that's, it defeats the point that it's an old person's hobby. But it's great for people who are older, who want the time to just, enjoy outdoors and wildlife. So yeah, I think it definitely requires a lot of patience when you go birding. You think, that is also part of the stereotype, it's about being patient and sitting in a bird hide with just old people with their floppy hats carrying binoculars. And I think that's actually really cool, wearing that gear, sitting in a bird eye with binoculars, waiting for the special African rail to pop out the reeds, or should we say African crake, because that's a bit more rare. That's really cool now that I'm into birding. But before that, yes, like thinking about hanging out with older folk who walk around looking at birds, I never thought about that until I was 12 years old and started understanding and appreciating the adventurous parts about bird watching. So, what are some of the experiences, to be specific, that you guys have had that kind of defeat the point that it's just for old people?
Yeah, well, in today's society, or youth, I should say, there's a lot more new technology around. So children nowadays, or teenagers, whatever you want to call them, will see a bird and just say, oh, that's a pigeon or that's an eagle. But there's a lot more. And now there's things like 5G network coming out and PlayStation 5 or whatever. So a lot of the younger youth will be heading towards that and not think birding and nature's boring and not have any interest in it.
Yeah, I mean, some oaks might save up for a PS5 or a Xbox, whatever. Or you could look at us and we're saving up for the Swarovski Optic NL Pures 12 by 50s. Oh, yes. And, it's a totally different group of, I don't know, species of people, if you could say, that birders are just so contrasted from the rest of the youth of today. Because, as you said, people, their minds are set on different things. And I think that, it's not thought of as something that youth do. Youth just need to get the experience in nature at a young age in order to understand why we do this. And even adults, they look at us like, well, he's looking at birds. I mean, you could be driving race cars, man. You could be doing something else with your life, but it's a matter of appreciation, I think, and also that thrill of adventure, because it's very much an adventurous thing. So something I actually mentioned on Conservation Conversations with BirdLife South Africa yesterday on their webinar that came out. I mentioned something about youth birding that, as I said, birding isn't thought of as something that youth do. I mean, the youth trend today isn't about grabbing your camera, getting together with your friends, putting your hiking boots on and going and taking pictures of wildlife. Today, the trend of youth is more about getting together with your friends, grabbing your cell phone and going and taking selfies and, putting your Vans on instead of hiking boots. It's just not, it's just not something that youth are seen to do today, to be in wildlife, getting dirty, appreciating animals. It's sort of like a new thing, but from what I can see, it's actually something that's growing quite a lot among the youth of today, especially now with the technology available, like cameras. I mean, now we've got these, what do you call it? Is it the mirrorless camera? Yeah. It's quite insane, actually. I mean, now with everyone, it's becoming more affordable to buy cameras, and now with kids getting cameras these days, you can choose to do street photography or this photography or that photography, and many of them are taking photos of what's right in front of them, and often it ends up being wildlife and birds, to be specific. And I know some people who have gotten into birding through photography, and I think that's one way that birding and wildlife interest is growing in youth these days. But talking about that, what are some of the challenges do you guys think of being a young birder?
Sure, there's plenty of challenges that come with being younger than the majority. I think one of the biggest challenges that we find as young twitchers, or when we want to chase birds, is that we struggle to get lifts, or we can get lifts and we cannot drive ourselves. So if you live in a remote area, then you'd be stuck at home and you wouldn't be able to get all the rarities that are found. So not having a car and not being able to drive is definitely one of the big challenges of being a younger birder.
No, that's very true. I have a sort of like a story about that. I was staying in my neighborhood. My previous neighborhood was right next to the botanical gardens and the garden route here. And I heard that there was an African cuckoo hawk that had just been seen there. And their range doesn't really occur here. The historic range occurred here, but the population's kind of been dying down. So I got really excited about it. And it was about a 2-kilometer walk. So my parents weren't home. So I jumped on my bike and I rode to the botanical gardens like as fast as I could. Got my bins on my back, flying in the air as I turned the corners. And I tried to twitch this African cuckoo hawk, in time. But unfortunately, it wasn't there. And then a couple of days later, I was actually just casually walking around and I saw it fly over my head and got some nice snaps. So yeah, I definitely can relate to that. It's a good point.
And it's also safer for you to like drive in a car to a destination near you. Like if you live in a remote area and there's a lot of crime, maybe, then walking alone with all of these, if you have expensive gear on you, it can be dangerous and you can get robbed. So being in a vehicle, it's much safer. And just,
Yeah, it's quite true. I mean, yeah, walking around with my camera, I want to bring my camera wherever I go because you never know. Even in town, I've actually brought my binoculars to a restaurant in town quite a few times, actually, now that I think about it. But, walking around town with my binoculars in the daytime or nighttime on a very rare occasion, I do kind of feel like it's not usual and people see this expensive, gadget on me and they always looking at me. And it is a worry that I could get robbed one day. So, yeah, I think, walking as a youngster around with your expensive equipment is a danger. And cars are better to use, as transport to get to destinations to go birding. And some people, only go birding in the urban park area, usually good birds there. And it's sometimes it can be dangerous. So it's best to walk in a group. So I think, yeah, if you go birding, it's nice to get a bunch of birders together your age to go walk. And that is a good reason to be in a bird club, which we can mention now. But that's another difficulty. There's not always a lot of young birders in your area.
No, but even no matter the age, I mean, when that spurwing, lapwing pitched up in the Cape somewhere, hundreds of birders were going for that. And each day there were birders. And there were a few cases where some robbers scoped out and watched the whereabouts of people, where they were walking to see the bird. And a few different like pairs or groups of people were robbed and all the expensive equipment was taken from them.
Yeah, I remember that. So I'm actually part of a bird club in my area with Justin, Lakes Bird Club, in the garden route. And that's actually how, as I said, I actually got more into birding. I started birding with my friend Justin, and yeah, we joined the bird club, and it totally boosted our knowledge and understanding of birds. And I'm sure you can agree, Justin. We joined the bird club and we brought the average age down to like 75, because literally the majority were over 60. But the very cool people, I mean, so respectable. We had Pete again. He wrote this book behind me, Ultimate Companion to Birding in Southern Africa. He's part of the club, and we learned so much from him. And really, you get a lot of attention in bird clubs when you're like under 20 years below the average age or so, and so we joined the bird club, youngest members there. Everyone's asking us how our recent birding trip was and like, how are you doing? And it's like, hi there, miss. Good, thanks. How was yours? But you don't like know their name. There's so many people in this bird club that they all know you, but you don't know them. So I'm part of a bird club. I'm not sure about you guys. Is anyone over here part of a bird club? Ever were part of a bird club?
Yeah, BirdLife Port Natal or the new BirdLife eThekwini. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I mean, there are some advantages, but there are a couple of disadvantages as well. Zach, you were speaking a little bit about it earlier. If you want to mention anything.
Yeah, no, it's just a lot of the time, bird clubs, and it's you can't blame them for it. They're not expansive, and it's quite repetitive, and there's outings to this sort of same reserves over a cycle, and I know a lot of young birders who haven't seen much in their life, they want to get out and they want to go see things. And I know for me, all I want to do is get to Zululand. And a lot of the time, unfortunately, the bird club doesn't organize trips there. So that'll take preference. If I get to go to Zululand, it'll take preference over a bird club. So, yeah, I think as young birders, we like to get out and do things and see new things all the time. And, yeah.
That's true. Yeah, no, I agree with that. So it can be like quite slow at times, but that's totally understandable now that I'm a bit older. I understand. It's what actually got me into birding, I must say. I was on Peter Ginn's walk in the gardens. He was doing a lecture and a talk and a bit of bird guiding. And then his assistant, Christian, he said, listen, there's a bird club. You want to come on the next outing? I'll give you a lift. And so, that's how Justin and I joined. And the old people really were like, okay, I say old people, I just generalize them. But they really were like our second family. They mentored us. My mentors are all from the bird club, basically. And the odd person I met on the streets who was birding, but I think that's a good point that you made there.
And back to talking about, you mentioned there not being lots of young birders around. One thing that's different nowadays is that there's technology, and technologies have a huge advantage for that. I mean, I've met birders like you, Mark, and John Ray, and I haven't met you guys, but I know you guys pretty well. I know a lot of guys from Cape Town, from Joburg, from Victoria, and I know all these guys, and you build a relationship with them. You never met them, and it's pretty cool. So internet's allowed for to create a bigger youth circle of birders, which is really, really cool. And then when you do see each other, you feel like you know each other and you can get along and you can go and bird. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's quite ridiculous how all five of you guys, I've never actually. I've met Justin and Yandre physically, but the other three, I've never met you guys, but we're all part of the birding life and we're ambassadors. It's kind of crazy, but it's a pity we're all on other sides of the country. But I guess during my travels, we'll meet each other sometime, show each other birding spots that we know. It'll be quite a cool experience. So I'm kind of glad actually that we're separated around the country, because now I have some go-to people. But I want to mention actually something. The youth today, how they're being more exposed than usual, given the opportunity to have more of a voice. This activism is really cool. People are doing a good job, and allowing people, youth and young people, to have more of a voice in conservation and everyday problems. But you get to a point where you can actually be cocky, and there's a line that is drawn where you've had enough to say. You know what I mean? So I think there's this, that the youth activism is a cool thing, but to a certain point, because the older people are there to learn from. And some of them are not done yet, still climbing mountains, still going on the bird outings that have been scheduled for the year and are the same every year. They're still really cool people, I must say, from my experience at least. And you've got so much to learn from them. So I think that us youth, we must carry on with our voices and pushing conservation, but we must never lose our respect for the older people, the older folk, and our elderlies.
Yeah. It's very important. I mean, I'm so grateful to many of the older generation in Durban who got me into birding. Basically, here in Westville, they got me into the bird club. I know that the chair lady of BirdLife Woodland has really been amazing. There's been many, many wonderful ladies that have often offered to pick me up and take me birding, and I'm so grateful for them. And I think as young people and young birders, even though we sometimes have done lots of research and we think we know a lot, there's still a lot to learn from the old people. And I think it's very important that elderly respect is not tainted and that it remains. And I think that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
It should be both. We should be working together. Shouldn't be the older generation dominating the market. Because I believe that the younger generation, they have a far bigger impact than the older generation. But the younger generation don't have the experience and the wisdom that the older generation do. So if we could find a way to work together to just unite on our common interest of birds, I think the outcome could be incredible.
Indeed. This is actually another challenge that us young birders might actually be facing, because there's these epic things that we want to do, and we might have life lists higher than a lot of other older people, and we want to get out there, you know, and go on like a flock to Marion that's coming up. But exactly, we don't have the budget to do this.
Say that, Mark. Say that.
It's quite a luxurious
We
thing, I
don't
must
have
say.
the finance yet.
But it's, yeah, I can't say no, I deserve it. But you know what? It's something I want to do. You know, I think there's going to be a lot more adults going than youth, obviously, under 21.
Definitely, yeah.
Or under 30s, should we say? But yeah, man, no, we've got to find a way to get there. The Birding Life ambassadors, we are going to rock that boat, man. We've got to make a plan to get there. Sheesh.
We don't want to sink it like the Titanic, so we should keep it down a bit, okay?
Yeah,
Let's not rock the boat. Let's just get on the boat.
But hey, anybody from overseas, if you're listening, you can sponsor us. Just don't feel bad.
Yes.
So I think if there's anyone who like drops out and doesn't have their ticket, the Birding Life ambassadors are available. We want to make a plan to get on that boat and see what's going out there.
We don't want to
very
pay.
much so.
We just want to get
I think we can all agree that would probably be our next mission in terms of birding this year. Hey,
Yeah.
I mean, how often does the flock happen?
Not
Once
often.
every
Maybe
4 years or
3
so.
4 years.
Sure, it's like a Olympics.
And
this
it's
is
not going to
probably the
happen
most-
to Marion Island again, I doubt it.
Sure.
It might happen
This
to
is the most
Gough
best one
Island
that's
or
going to
something
happen
else.
in a long time.
Wow. Okay, well that's really special. Sure.
No, you won't get to go back to Marion Island. The chances are so small. So if you don't get on there, you probably will never see Kerguelen turn. That's probably the only one that you have to go to Marion for.
Hmm.
Kerguelen petrol is going to be so cool.
Yo, bro, I can't comprehend the birds that you will get there. It's not English to me. So you're gonna have to give me a lesson, Zach. But yeah, guys. So just to round it off, what are some of like your favorite birding spots in your local area? Just a quick summary. Justin, let's start with you.
Sure. My all-time favorite is most definitely the Swartberg Mountain Pass. The number of birds, and not only birds, but reptiles and butterflies and animals that are all up there are just incredible. And the pass itself is just stunning. So that would most definitely be my favorite spot in my area.
And Yandere, what would you say is yours in your local area?
Well, this isn't too local, but it's in wider Gauteng, so I'll consider it as something. Definitely Zorgkuil. I mean, that place in the summer, it's a feast. It's definitely one of South Africa's best birding destinations.
I've never been there or heard much about it. What is it like? What are the habitats?
Bushveld habitat, and then you also get Gomo floodplain, which is fantastic for any type of water bird or stuff like that.
Yeah.
So there's been crazy sightings in this year. So yeah, there's been breeding striped crags at multiple spots in Zorgkuil, and also some crazy records of streaky-breasted flufftails. I don't know if they were breeding there, but they were present at Gomo. And there was also the other day Black Kukul, but no one saw it, but the recording was recorded. Well, it's called.
Wow.
So yeah, it's really an amazing place.
It's a fantastic spot. Tristan, what would you say is your favorite spot?
Well, definitely northern Natal. So Zululand with the sheer amount of thornveld, sand forests, wetlands. It's produced a number of rarities over the years, and just the sheer amount of species and wildlife found there.
Wow.
I mean, it's countless. Amazing.
And I mean, for all those international listeners listening to this podcast now, if you're not from South Africa, these are just some of the habitats that you get here. And I'm so keen to get up to KwaZulu-Natal province. I've never been there as a birder, but Zach, you also stay there. What are some of your spots, or what's your favorite spot there?
Yeah, it's pretty difficult to choose a select spot, because KwaZulu-Natal's got beautiful diversity of habitats. But if I were to choose an easy destination from Durban, I'd probably choose Mtunzini. It's sort of coastal habitat, coastal grassland. It's got an estuary, lots of mangroves. It's got some really cool birds this time of the year. There's mangrove kingfisher there. But then in summer, it's when it really picks up. There's some African crakes that hang around there. Every now and then a corn crake is seen. There's black cuckoos that breed in the grasslands there. African finfoot, there's quite a few sites along the estuary. Yeah, and then you've got Ngoya forests, where it's the only place in southern Africa where the green barbet can be found. There's also yellow street greenbill there. Yeah, it's a really nice day out. There's another dam where you can get pygmy goose and white-backed duck right there. Southern banded snake eel, you can also get that there. So yeah, there's some really cool things.
Really big array of
species. But it's also difficult because northern Zululand is just absolutely immaculate. You've got Ndumo and Tembe and Kuzi and Pempe Pans, where we recently had a buff-breasted sandpiper. So yeah, it's just hard to choose.
Lovely. Yeah, there's quite a big array of species there. I think you get forests all along the coast of South Africa, except for Namibia, where there's the skeleton coast and the desert there. But the forest and the garden route very much differs to the forest in KwaZulu-Natal. Just a bit of interesting facts here for those non-South African viewers. You don't get those green malkoas here in the garden route where there's forest. You don't get the green barbets. So I think KwaZulu-Natal is much more dense in terms of biodiversity in those forests. But I think for my spot, my favorite spot in this area of the garden route, it's hard to choose between the Klein Karoo, which is a semi-arid desert area between the Swartberg and the Oostnikwa, and Voelvlei, which basically translates to Bird Lake, except it's a floodplain that only fills up every few years with water. Purely because of the memories I had there. When I went there with Justin, we camped there the one night after it had rained for the first time in 4 or 5 years. And we found, talking about buff-breasted sandpipers, Zach, we found 2 buff-breasted sandpipers. I think it was the first time in the sub-region that was recorded with 2 individuals at one time.
That's correct.
And it was the first record for the garden route. So we're totally chuffed about that. So those are 2 of my favorite spots that it's very hard to choose from. Now, unfortunately, Connor has left the conversation because load shedding is happening there in Gauteng. So we can't, unfortunately, we can't hear from him what his favorite spot is, but it's also near where Yandere stays. So there you have it, a couple of nice habitats and spots in South Africa that the ambassadors enjoy, and some of the places that you might want to consider going. But yeah, guys, there you have it, the Birding Life ambassadors. That's us, and I hope you have a happy Youth Day. But otherwise, thanks, guys. Happy birding.
We are proud to be working in association with Wild Books to help get all the best birding resources into your hands at a great price. If you would like to support the Birding Life project and the resources that we are putting out, please click on the link in either the comment section of this podcast or in our social media posts. Your support helps us to improve and hopefully make a bigger impact. Be sure to head over to our website, www.thebirdinglife.com, and check out all the exciting resources that we have on our website, including our exciting forum section to connect you with the world of birding, birders, and exciting birds out there. Do not forget to follow The Birding Life on Instagram and Facebook. We really appreciate everyone that takes the time to interact with these accounts. Be sure to check out Birdlasser and download the app on either iOS or Android, and keep a life list while playing your part in social conservation, as well as Swarovski Optic, one of the world's leading producers of binoculars, and spotting scopes. So until next time, be blessed and happy birding.